is on already. This is being. Oh, look at that. Hey.
Oh,
There we are.
There you are.
For better or worse?
Hi! Arm.
Hey, Oscar.
Hi, Dr. Moore.
Hello.
Hi. Well, if you have problems, we could do the Skype.
Censor.
Yeah, this one gets stuck. Well, not this one. This one. Don't yeah. See, they got unbalanced and oh. Thank you. But that helped a bunch. Yeah, just on the oh, yeah, looks better.
We're adjusting the shades.
Yeah.
Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have to speak louder. I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Here's the great earth, filled with the smell of incense and covered in a blanket of flowers. The great mountain and the 4 continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha, offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamiri. I go for refuge, Dhamma and Sangha, until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving and rest, and I reach Buddha for the sake of every living. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha, until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving and rest, I reach Buddha for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Sangha, until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving and rest, I reach Buddha for the sake of every living being.
Any questions from the last class?
Any questions?
We understand it perfectly.
We understand it perfectly.
As I expected. Sure. I mean, do do that one. And then turn that on. Oh yeah, it's on the left. Yeah, it'll get brighter, I think.
Okay.
You have it turned up to full brightness. Okay, so tonight this is class 9 in the beginning of the course 5 of Karma, and we'll be studying Karma, and the ultimate book on it is The Treasure House of Knowledge, the Abhidharma Kosha, by Master Kasha Bandhu went 850? 350 AD, yes. We were just a half a century off. And of course, Abhidharma means knowledge. The Abhi, A-B-H-I part means up to or approaching. Dharma, and Dharma, has about 12 different meanings. We most commonly refer to it as the Buddha's teachings. In this case, it means existing object, anything which holds its own nature. And Kosha means treasure house. The highest of all existing objects is nirvana. In knowledge brings it to you or leads you to this state. And how does karma work? You can know what and why you're where you are, why your back hurts, why your neck hurts, why an uncomfortable situation is occurring in your day, and how to fix it. Why you're getting old? Where did that person that angers you come from? And you realize all of that comes from you and the way that your mind has been trained over eons of time. And you go through 5 paths. Everyone will become a Buddha at some point in time. And when that occurs, they have to go through 5 paths of their spiritual development. And that's primarily learning about renunciation and building up some karma. So the path of preparation, you can begin learning about emptiness, understanding it, putting it to use, so that you can then have the path of seeing, which is the direct perception of emptiness. And then you've got this very valuable thing that is seated in your mind forever. And you've got to learn to use it. So you have, and that's where it just says you habituate your mind to how karma, how it affects you. That's the path that generally, the Abhidharma Kosha says, takes about 7 lifetimes. And then you reach total enlightenment, path of no more learning. And it's because, name that because you know everything. You're omniscient. You're 16 years old again. Something's going on there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you know, our dog was protecting us. She was letting us know that somebody was outside. It's
okay,
cool.
So you, okay, good. Just the dog was barking.
Yeah.
Okay. So because Abby refers to knowledge, so the actual knowledge is the 3 that make the unstained wisdom. And the unstained wisdom are the paths of seeing, habituation, and no more learning. They're not stained with negative karma. And that's what enables you to get to the top. And the way you get there are things like studying, meditating, going to class, hearing the same thing over and over again until you really know it and you really understand it. So you'll be studying a commentary, The Illumination of the Path to Freedom, by His Holiness the First Dalai Lama. He lived 1391 to 1474. You must have the Abhidharma or it's impossible to accomplish it. The first Dalai Lama's name is Gyalwa, and that's Gyalwa. And that's when you do the official name of any of the Dalai Lamas, it's Gyalwa, and that means victorious one. And his name's Gyalwa Jindan Drup. So in Buddhism, because we understand how life works, the unpredictability of it, the lack of control of it. We've got to make use of our time by studying. We've got to not waste our time with mundane affairs of reading soap operas and so forth, but reading stuff that is beneficial to us. We must. So what is a good Buddhism book? It must have 4 characteristics. If it doesn't have these, and it's interesting, it doesn't necessarily, to have some of these characteristics, it doesn't necessarily have to be titled Buddha. There are many books that have a secondary meaning that is quite significant, so that you can get out of these 4 things I'm going to say, they can all be there in what might be a book that doesn't say Buddhism in it at all. And if you're not working with a book that will lead you along the path, you're wasting time. You're planting thousands of seeds in your mind stream, and you're wasting this limited amount of time. Once again, your mind's like a video recorder, and anytime you spend time on wasted stuff, it just imprints into your mind, and it's going to affect you later on. And by later on, I don't mean necessarily in this life, but somewhere down the road. So the number 1 is the subject matter. It must have serious content. And the Treasure House of Knowledge defines every object, it defines every object in the universe. It breaks them down into pure and impure. And if you can truly learn that, then you wouldn't do anything impure, and you'd be on your way out of here. But the information is there. Number 2 is the purpose, or the goal. And the Abhidharma says that is to give you wisdom, to allow you to distinguish between deceptive and ultimate reality. And then, of course, you want the ultimate goal, number 3. And that's to achieve 2 kinds of nirvana. And number 4, there has to be a relation between these. Number 2, the purpose is arrived at through the, number 1, the subject matter, which leads to number 3, the ultimate goal. And if you look at books that New York Times bestseller list, and they're popular today, but in 5 years from now, where do you find them? On the shelves at the Goodwill, or in the doctor's office, which has stuff 4 years old. And it's karma and how it affects you. The worlds were created by karma. What is karma? Absolutely. And there's 64 karmas in the snap of your fingers. You'll hear Geshe Michael mix that up between 64 and 65, and finally researched it in the 60s. I think he's got it now at 64. But if you think a moment where you are, if you're looking at something, it's not one karma that's ripening. The whole room, the color, the picture in front of you that has a bunch of different colors in it, you're seeing all these things at once. That is thousands of karma seeds ripening at the same time. Karma means action. It's the action of your mind. So whatever these mental movements motivate you to think through your speech and actions. Most things, the most important thing is thought. That's where it all starts from. So there's a non-communicating form of karma, which is a form that you can't see. When someone, if you've ever watched the Academy Awards, you see them on stage and you can see their thrill, their true excitement. But it's nothing specific. It's just something that's there. And then maybe hours later at one of their parties afterwards, that glow is gone. Their glow is no different than everyone else at the party then. It's not that special glow that was there before. It's disappeared. And I'm sorry, I think I said that was non-communicating. That is something you can see. That's communicating karma. It's not something, there's in there that you can see and you can interpret. Karma has 5 kinds, and it's not something you can see. It's distraction is number 1, and it's a karma that's present, though, even when you're distracted. Karma's there. You're in a form of deep meditation. Your mind's not active, but that's really a misnomer because the mind never really stops. It's always going. Even when you're totally enlightened, the mind's working. It's always present. But when it's almost not, when it's not dealing with everything around you like most of the time, there's still a karmic activity going on. And number 3 is virtuous or not.
So number 1 is distraction.
Distraction.
What's number 2?
Number 2 is when the mind's not working.
Oh, when the mind's not sorry.
When the mind stopped. Number 3 is virtuous or not. And it's just the essence of the deed that you're doing. Is it good or bad? And number 4, it continues on. The karma is present past the time the deed because it's in a constant mind stream. You can't see this, but it's there. Number 5, it takes the great elements as its causes. And that means it's past physical matter. It's not something you touch, you can describe as anything solid. So it takes the great elements as its causes. But what defines a bad karma? And it's really quite simple. It's when it causes you to suffer some kind of discomfort. And there are times we do things, and it's really not till later that it bothers us that we did it. And it's the basis of it is often not whenever somebody else says it is. And that goes back to what's right or wrong, the parents, the church, the laws. And to me, the best example of that are the laws. We had a constitutional amendment that said you can't drink. So it's against the law. Can't drink alcohol. It's against the law. A few years later, they passed another constitutional amendment that says it's okay to drink alcohol. They pass a law that's saying you can't have an abortion. Pass another law that says you can have an abortion. The laws, what's right, what's wrong? And that's where it comes in to where you have to evaluate yourself as to what's wrong. You all, in the churches, the parents, things that I had and watched, there were things that I had questions about that they couldn't answer for me. Or the example is, don't do as I do, do as I say. And so you've got to evaluate those things. They're not always black and white. Positive karma or virtuous karma, that brings you happiness, and that ultimately gets you to enlightenment. Karmic law is like gravity. If you do certain actions, it's going to give you trouble for your happiness, for yourself. And then there's neutral karma. It's an action which gives you a neutral result, neither of the other two. Sitting somewhere, you're all alone, in a room by yourself, and nothing's really happening. You don't have bad thoughts, you don't have good thoughts. Somebody might say, well, that's a neutral karma ripening because some neutrality that you had in the past. And in actuality, that's a negative karma ripening, because a positive karma ripening is going to bring you happiness. I always thought that was interesting when I heard that.
So then what's neutral?
You could create neutral. You probably ripen later on, but because it's not positive, if it's
The neutral karma is unless
the rubbing of,
right.
but where it was the creation of.
Right. I remember Gersh was saying once that what creates neutrality in your life are all those subtle negative karmas that you do.
Yeah.
Like colour the wall you don't really care about.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what do you think of that?
One of them is shame, and that is because of shame, you feeling shame, you avoid a negative action because you don't want to see yourself with such a bad self-image. So that's brought on about you caring about yourself and the way you present. And then there's consideration, and that's related to others. How actions can affect or impress others. And we know of 10 major, the Buddha listed 84,000 negativities, mental afflictions, and so forth, but there are major rights and wrongs. There's killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. Help me with speech. Lying.
Harsh words.
Harsh words.
Gossip.
I'm sorry.
Gossip. Gossip.
Gossip. Okay.
And then
Divisive speech and other thoughts.
Divisive speech and idle thought, idle talk. Yeah. And among the thoughts?
Ill will, craving, worldview. Wrong view.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. But tell me what craving means.
It's similar to coveting.
To
Right?
poverty?
To coveting.
Coveting. Okay, but how often do you really covet something? I mean, I know it talks about the books, but tell me what it means.
To be upset when you see somebody else did something good.
Yeah, not just upset, but wishing, why does she have those pair of shoes? She shouldn't have those. I should have them.
Or wanting their good qualities, like
Not wanting, not being happy when somebody else has something.
They're jealous.
Jealous, and a bodhisattva, that's a terrible thing to be like that. What, you not being happy, who does that hurt? It doesn't affect them and their shoes. It hurts us, but you. So it's kind of silly, but we do that. Not happy when, okay, and ill will.
Wishing bad. Hard times.
Esther said being happy when somebody has a hard time or something like that. And is that going to affect them? Make it harder? Make it worse? Make it better? Once again, and that's not the way a bodhisattva should live. But we've all done it some. And that's why these things are mentioned in the top 10 of Lord Buddha's 84,000, because we do those kind of things, sometimes without even any thought. But if we do these things, we can do things in a good way, the opposite of this. Protecting life. Making sure somebody gets back what they lost. Things like that. And when do these ripen? Karma's very powerful. And of course, that can ripen in any life, but if we have Tantra with the right formula in it, we can get them to ripen in this lifetime, which we want the good and the bad ones too, but with the proper studying, we can get them to ripen in a very minimal, the bad things to ripen in a very minimal fashion, and we can magnify the good ones. Karma decides where you're born and how and where you will live. There are 3 results of karmic ripening. When it ripens, corresponding results and environmental results. For the body, speech, and mind, so we ripen birth in one of the 3 lower realms. That's the ripened results. So look at corresponding results down. For instance, the body. Even if you were to make it to a human rebirth, similar harm occurs to you. You have a short life, sickly. You must share things you don't have things of your own. And you're attracted to doing the same things that you've done before. The environmental, you live in a dangerous place. We've all heard of hailstorms, tornadoes, droughts, things like that, that affect the farmer. Famine. It's often filthy, smells, and we're very fortunate in this country. We can often get around some of that, but the third world countries, or even some of the good countries, often. For speech, the corresponding result, people don't accept your opinion. People discredit you. You don't have friends. hear things around you, people ignore you. Your environment, your work is non-productive. Your work is never satisfying. People are deceptive around you. One of the hospitals I was at, I was on the anesthesia. There were a number of times that I would make a recommendation. We should do something. And people just kept going on, nobody listened. A few months later, somebody else would say exactly the same thing I said, and it was a great idea, and they implemented it. It really bothered me for a while. What's the deal? Well, this told me the answer to that. It came from my past lying in the past, and people wouldn't listen to me. And to me, that's really a nice thing about Buddhism. Things are explained. If you delve deep enough, well, they cover everything. And it's there. And who's responsible? I'm still looking for him. Environment. Let's see. Did I cover that? Yeah. Did I cover the environment of speech? Yeah. Okay. So your environment, your to break that down a little further, the work is non-productive, lying people around you, your environment is dangerous. That's divisive. You and dangerous environment. Bushes, sharp rocks, water scarce. That comes from harsh words. Fruit trees and plants don't ripen. Few of them open. Few open in nice areas around. Few parks. Few beautiful hillsides like you have there. That's idle talk. And for the mind, correspond similar harm. You're overcome by a feeling of desire, dislike. That's the ignorance. You're attracted to similar things. I've counseled children, and they begin lying, and they lie some more, and they lie some more, and sometimes then they realize after years later that they lie when they don't have to. The truth would suffice and would actually be better. But because they're caught up in that cycle, they continue to lie. Depression works the same way. I work with a gastroenterologist sometime who's always in a bad mood, it seems like. And it seems like he feeds himself on it. Make other people unhappy, he likes to be unhappy. And in satisfaction, thinks in it. But in fact, it's very destructive to him. But that's what they mean in your mind where it's similar. You just keep it going. Things seem to have no end. They just seem to get worse. That's craving. Infectious disease, dangerous insects and animals, criminals. That's from ill will. No karma around you. You may begin to like to feel uncomfortable, having discomfort, pain. So the pen, it has no identity of its own, but who's right with it? what if the dog sees it as a chewing toy, you see it as a pen, the Eskimo sees it as a digging tool, who is having a pramana, a sema?
All of them.
They all are, right. It's all a valid perception from their karmic background. But it can't be three things at once.
So it's
And
not.
that's a proof of emptiness. As each individual sees it different, it is that thing. But it's not all three of those things at once. It's the projections that come from your past karma that forces you to see it the way that you see it. But the real key is the way you react to this or anything is what determines whether you reach enlightenment or not. What you do about it. Whether you get upset about it. Whether you wish it was happening to them, not you. We have to, let's back up to the mind-only school. And that brings to mind, Bonnie's brother was visiting us for a while. And I sat down, he's a very strong, good man, a very strong fundamentalist Christian. And quotes the Bible, knows it backwards and forwards. And we were sitting there, and I gave him the example of the pen. And it blew me away. His response was, "It is a pen." And I said, "How can you say that when the dog sees it, etc.?" And he said, "Because they just don't have the information to compare the way it was made and where it came from." And no matter what I said, that's how he said it. And it occurred to me, that's perfect. That's mind-only school. It has some self-nature of its own because of all of these other factors. Well, unfortunately, most of us are in the mind-only school a lot during the day.
Mm.
We see things as being real. So, but they say that mental seeds are planted. You're aware of what you did, said or thought. That's the first thing they say happens. And then they say they create a foundation consciousness. And this travels with you forever and ever and ever. And they say these mental seeds stay in this foundation consciousness. They replicate themselves. And they maintain their energy in whatever new form that is created. And then they say, number three, when the right causes, conditions, it ripens into a perception of something. Of however you're going to see it. As a pen, as a chew toy, as a hand, or as a paw. But just to take it a step further, if you get into the higher schools, they don't accept the foundation consciousness. They describe, that's the way they can describe it, is there's just an energy that's karmic seed, and then that goes with you until it burns or you destroy it, or it's damaged in some way, it can't or won't ripen. Point that's troubled people for eons. But the Buddha said that everything in the universe is your mind only. And so a lot of people say, well, the Buddha says that everything's from your mind. But he had objectives in saying that. One was negative and one was positive. The negative was that he wanted to refute that the universe, your world, your existence, that it could be a result of anything else. Primarily, he was trying to talk about a creator being. He was talking about you see it as you see it, not somebody else making you see it a certain way. And the positive of the mind only, he wanted to show that the mind is the main source. So negatively, he wanted to say that somebody doesn't do the credit. Hopefully, you'd be proud of that. And so he said this positive aspect because of its relationship to the creation. You create your karma, and to the ripening of karma. You bring about the causes and conditions, and you cause it to ripen into the way you see things. Of karma, one of the biggest is, of the 5 things that make us up, discrimination is one of them where Buddha put in there because it is the creation of so many of our problems. We make judgments on people. Very often they're wrong because the way we see the dance, their facial expression, their smile or whatnot. And so we then discriminate. Good, bad, right, wrong, ugly, pretty, whatever it might be. Whenever we do that just mentally, we're creating a karmic seed. And that's really something that we have to fight with, and that's where the marriage of karma and emptiness come in together. And I agree with Geshe Michael when he says, you're welcome to go to other teachers. Just make sure they're valid. If they ever talk to you about one or the other without combining them, you need to question it. They don't have a proper understanding of things. Because when you create your karma, you're on that blank screen. And you have to understand its effect and how it's going to affect you in the future. So you can't exist one without the other. And that's where it comes into the lifestyle of making it work. So that's really all I have. That sums up a library of karma course. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Yeah. So let's say you're aware of, like people not listening to you or living in a smelly, stinky place, and you're aware of it, and you realize it's because of what I have done, and I've created that. But because I have the awareness of it, how do I change it?
Okay, good question. I'm trying to remember. I think it's course 13. Or put a list of a fairly extensive list of actions and subsequent results. for instance, living extinct as a result of sexual misconduct. And let it say that you've had no sexual misconduct in this life, but you recognize it, that that's the cause. So you do four forces on it, four powers on it, to try to damage the seed, but as part of your makeup activity, you try to bring other people together and try not to allow, excuse me, allow is not a good word, you try to encourage people to not have any sexual misconduct. In that combination, with being done with great sincerity, can accomplish that. Diamond is in Cochise County, where best per capita rattlesnake per acre exists. During the whole the 7 years we were there for teaching and retreat, nobody has been bitten by rattlesnake. So although they live in a dangerous area, there were no real problems from it. And there'd be snakes around, and they'd say, okay, there's a rattlesnake by this rock in this area, so be careful when you go by. And nobody was bitten. So it's a karmic ripening in that they're in a place that's dangerous, but it's not a karmic fruition because nobody was hurt. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people walk around barefoot in the dark and no flashlight or anything. Amazing. And nobody would get bit. They had skunks that walk around. Scared me to death. You'd be getting your food at the table. The skunk would brush against your leg. It never squirted. Never stunk up anybody. So the people had the karma to live in there, but not to suffer consequences. Step further and overcome the environment. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, close for a second.
Yeah. I think is it from the Will of Sharp Knives in 14?
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
He was wondering what his correlations that all put together. Is it actually from ACI 14?
Is it 14 that it's in? Okay.
Will of
Okay.
Sharp.
Uh-huh. Did you say something else?
Oh, no. Just the Will of Sharp Knives, I think, would be a good place to go and check.
The wheel of sharp knives, which is where the
Yeah, that's right. That's where it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. It's actually the Wheel of Knives. Yeah. Mandala?
Yeah. You want to pick it up?
We lost us. We're running low on power.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Bye, Esther.
Bye.
Bye, Dr. Moore. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.